So you give the time, 10-second warning, and then I
Stop.
try to do the opener.
It's it's June 15th, 2019, recorded live.
Live from coast to coast, it's the Dugout with Doug Boyle. On this week's episode, Doug does his medical review and finds out whether being the coach of the Orioles or being the interim coach of the Marlins have taken more years off of Brandon Hyde's life. And also, Stevie Yo goes to Toronto to try to take back the Larry O'Brien Trophy. You hear me, Canada? Just because we've had the Stanley Cup hostage for 26 years doesn't give you the right to retaliate. It's the Dugout with Doug Boyle, and now your host, Doug Boyle.
Yeah, what's going on? The basketball championship is in Canada, and the hockey champions in America. Are dogs and cats living together in harmony? Is the world coming to an end?
This is the weirdest timeline, I tell you what.
Yeah, I never would have thought I would have been hearing that intro right there. That's pretty rough, and I considered going to Toronto to try to steal the O'Brien Trophy, but we've had it in Oakland for 2 out of the last 3 years.
Ooh,
We'll take it, and it's going to be rough though. That was heartbreaking to see those injuries like that.
It was.
Yeah, as a Clippers fan, I couldn't tell you how richly satisfying this series was.
I'm not really a basketball fan. I was a fan of the Bulls when Jordan was on the Bulls, and now I kind of casually watch it. But, I mean, outside of your team losing, it's kind of nice to have somebody new there. I think the problem with the NBA to the casual fan is that it seems like it's a script that's already written, and there's no real reason to watch. And so, hey, Toronto pulled it out of nowhere. Kawhi Leonard did something. He went to he was traded to a average team that no one was thinking would be the thing, and they won the championship. That's impressive in my book. It's kind of cool, and we gotta congratulate the St. Louis Blues for keeping a trophy out of Boston.
Hey,
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that Boston didn't win that one. They've had too much luck the last couple decades here. But I will say I agree. I almost agree with you on the basketball thing, except for my team lost. Obviously, I'm a little upset. And then the devastating injuries, I mean, they're going to be out for most of next season too, and that's just horrible to see. I mean,
yeah, those injuries were a lot worse than I thought.
Yeah, kudos to Kawhi Leonard and Van Fleet. I mean, he outplayed Steph Curry for some of those games in that final, so I mean, they deserve it. Then I guess that's our just a bit outside segment.
Yeah, that's just a bit outside. we started with that. I mean, I want to go through something real quick. It's like we have an apology segment, and I have an apology from last week. It's called "What I Meant to Say." It's our errors and corrections. Last week, when I wrote the rundown, I wrote a rehab section. I just failed to paste it into our format, and the reason why it was skipped wasn't because Steve missed it. It was because I forgot to put it. And we don't really add. We actually don't go backwards a lot, but I just really want to quickly say, like, there were guys on there that were rehabbing last week because we're not going to cover them this week. I'll just give the names: J.P. Crawford, Joey Wendell, D. Gordon already got called up. Jesus Luzardo's rehabbing. Jake Lamb's rehabbing. David Phelps, John Jay, Mike Clevenger's rehabbing. He's throwing well, but he's letting people hit off him. Justin Upton started. Denison Lamet started. And Hunter Strickland started to rehab last week. That's the apology for missing it last week. I did post it physically on every site that I could because, hey, we all make mistakes. We just hate making them. And
I do have a correction as well, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Well, I know I may have upset some people by saying that I thought the Kentucky Derby would have been improved by having the contestants, quote, check each other into the boards. I do not endorse cruelty to other species. That's just my natural reaction, is that anything in life can be improved by checking, your enemies into the boards.
You can be cruel to dolphins, because those guys would be cruel to you if given the chance. Dolphins and pigs. But every other animal is sacrosanct in our book. But I'll pivot toward baseball. My brother, first off, say that the presser's not here this week. He was abducted by aliens. In his note, he said, "Don't worry too much." He said the probing has always been loving and gentle. He'll be back next week. I was going to bring my brother on, and I thought it would be a good time because this week we commemorated the 40th anniversary of the best baseball moment in my lifetime, which was Disco Demolition Night at Comiskey Park when I was 9 years old. Do you guys have any memories of that?
I actually did a poem based on that event.
Yeah,
I don't have it on me, unfortunately.
I've seen the ESPN. I don't know if it was a 30 for 30 or whatever, but I've seen something on it about it on TV. It seemed pretty cool. I think it was before my time, though.
I was 9 years old. They were doing. I was a fan of the Loop, the radio station. I was a fan of the disc jockey Steve Dahl. There's kind of a Chicago-New York rivalry. Steve Dahl was the Howard Stern of Chicago when he was there 10 years before. This was a signature coming out moment. One of the big things he did was he did this big Disco Sucks movement, and like everybody who was a fan was an insane co-lip because salmon are things that are in Chicago. I mean, I wanted to go, but I was 9 years old, and Comiskey Park was on the other side of town, and it was the middle of the week. If it was a Saturday game, I would have went. My best friend Keith Woodruff, his brother, literally stole second base when they went on the field. So I did get to hang out in the basement with second base. There's a lot of, there's a lot of people that say that motion really kind of ended disco. People started looking at disco in a different light because of what may happen in a baseball game. And yeah, it was the one time a game was forfeited for virtually no reason whatsoever.
I was about to say that it was kind of a baseball moment anyway because of that. Yeah. I mean, if the White Sox had lost the AL West at the time because of a one-game ratio, they said, "What is that worth it?"
I kind of knew that was going to happen during the day that day because me and my friends we couldn't go to the thing. We all had a couple disco records and we had a bunch of firecrackers and we kept trying to blow those things up. And it's amazing how you can accidentally drop a record and it'll crack. But you put a firecracker on it because you want to blow it up, it won't. They're more durable than you think. So I knew that it was going to take some pyrotechnics to get that stuff to move. I think I had a copy of Le Freak by Chic. But people will talk sometimes. Now they analyze the situation. They say is this in retrospect really was it a racial issue because it's there were white people saying that black people's music was terrible. And I go, there might be something to that. But I really think that this is the great thing about the death of disco. The death of disco was really white people rebelling against white people taking over black people's music. It's at the time that they did this, the big bands were like Casey and the Sunshine Band, the Village People, Andy Gibb, the Bee Gees. These were white folks that were co-opting, someone else's culture. And by putting it in this negative light, black culture musically went back and did two really great things. It's the guys that really wanted to dance, they went and they did house music and they were left alone to do house music. And that's not my cup of tea, but now we're living in an area where house music actually hits the top 40s because they do it so well. But on the other side, it led to the birth of hip hop. That's where all the energy moved. And there might not have been a Cool Mo D or an LL Cool J or a Grandmaster Flash if it wasn't for a game between the Tigers and the White Sox. Anyway.
You're asking whether it killed disco. I would say it didn't help. It didn't kill disco. The movie Can't Stop the Music, that killed disco.
Well, that movie was painful. Xanadu was painful. It's the movies before then were big hits. The movies after that,
1980 killed disco.
Well, this was 1979 in July 14th, I think it was, or July 12th. Anyway.
Celebrating Bastille Day by blowing up disco records. Awesome.
Unholy Toledo in the chat room said that Saturday Night Fever was a major catalyst for the disco popularity.
Yeah, that's one of those great things. It's one of those things if you watch the movie Saturday Night Fever, that movie is a really good movie about how empty and meaningless the dance life was. It's this guy was miserable, and that's what the thing was about. And so the American public flocked to that movie, watched it, sang along to the songs, and what they took away from it is, let's go out dancing. It's we just get things wrong a lot, It's that this movie is really he was like an empty soul. That was what it was about. It was actually if you can ignore the happy fun, and who doesn't like the Bee Gees music? If you can ignore the happy fun music, it's a dark little mammoth play. But hey.
But if you want a happy ending, try, at least for the main character, at least what he would consider a happy ending. Try the sequel, Staying Alive, or better yet, don't, because that movie's atrocious.
you get the musical stylings of Frank Stallone, right? And
absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're like,
well,
yeah,
it's nice.
It's nice. It's directed by Sylvester Stallone. He has like a little cameo at the beginning. It's like a little Hitchcock moment for him. It's great.
It's nice that we have some people on the chat room. See, Cha-Cha and Holy Toledo already has been mentioned. It'd be great if you guys stick around, because at the end we're going to do trivia without Bill, which means that, without the professor, which means that poor Steve Yo will be on his own. And so the idea was to have Stevie Yo team up with the chat room to try to beat Brendan in this thing this week. It looks like we're back.
Yeah, I need all the help I can get.
It looks like we're back to being. It looks like we're back to being the only show on Saturday. I think Lou and Lucas are just taking the day off. I don't think it's a permanent thing, but we're gonna be here We're gonna be here, and if you tune in to the website later in the day, you'll see us. If 10 o'clock on Sunday is the fantasy hour, and I apologize, I don't really know who hosts that. I don't want to guess at it. I do want to spotlight on Monday 9 o'clock. Lenny comes back on. He's the flagship show. The reason why any of us are here. There's two shows on Monday that are special to me. At 6:30 p.m., George Hubschman of Rhoda Imbeciles comes on. He has a nice show where it's a little bit of recap and some fun trivia stuff. And I'd like to remind you that an imbecile is smarter than an idiot, but not quite as smart as a moron. On the scale,
there's a hierarchy.
Yeah, there actually is. The words mean you have an IQ in a certain phrase, in a certain area. Like an idiot is 30 to 45, and an imbecile is like 45 to 70, and a moron is 70 to 90, or something like that. And also, Dan Gilbert of Fantasy Fisticuffs comes on at 11 p.m. on Monday night. He's the latest show. Because of that, people don't stay up for it, but I know his West Coast guys listening to us. It's the best show on at 11 p.m. talking fantasy sports, because it's probably the only show on talking. But he's got a great voice. I often do things with him. I want you to do it. You can reach me at Urban Baboon. You can reach Stevie Yo at Kinda Not a Joke. You can reach Brendan if you want to by a series of smoke signals.
I thought carrier pigeon was the best way to get Brendan on.
Brendan, are you accepting the pigeons now?
Either that, or you could just leave a nice typed message outside the garbage disposal on the corner of Colonial and Semoran in Orlando. I check it every now and then. I'll probably get back to you.
That's great, and you can follow the network at Legends Sports N on Twitter. The website here is LennyMetallicFanitySports.com, and that's the place that, if you're listening via podcast, and we love you guys that download us. We love you so much, don't we all?
Yeah.
Lenny Metallic Fantasy Sports, 40 hours of programming, live talk during most of it, and there. With that being said, and let's hit the 13-minute mark, I think we're ready for the rundown.
All right, it's Stevie Yo here with everything Doug wants you to know. Oh,
rundown brought to you by anything? Because I was out of power this week, so I can say rundown brought to you by Duke Power. We have a scam. We get you to spend $200 a month to us, and we don't give a crap about you. Your power's out. Maybe call us Monday. Screw you guys. We own the world. Duke Power. Anyway.
I hate to say that I was enjoying your misery, Doug, but I some of your tweets to Duke Power were very entertaining. I guess.
So the last time they knocked their power out, I led a class action lawsuit against them from everybody in our area because they kept lying to us, and we actually got a judgment which allowed most of us to buy. It wasn't a big one; it was like $500. It allowed most of us to get a generator, but because of their lies, we didn't power up the generator. Like, it'll be done in 2 hours. It'll be done in 2 hours. Why go through all that hassle? Anyway,
sure.
Duke Power hates me more than I hate them. Back to baseball.
All right, Stevie O here with everything Doug wants you to know. This Saturday morning, we're going to start with injuries. Corey Seager, grade 2 hamstring. He's out for possibly 4 weeks. Ken Giles left with elbow inflammation. Domingo Herman, left hip flexor strain.
Yeah, the most serious one of the bunch is the Corey Seager injury, and that's probably the most impactful from a fantasy standpoint too. It's a grade 2 hamstring strain. They actually haven't said what his timeline is, but typically that's 4 weeks. So if you're a Seager owner, you're looking...
Speaking of Impact, the